There is just so much that I love about the Book of Mormon, but probably my favorite thing is how there are themes within the book that help us to see our lives more clearly. And in today's chapter, we're going to see the theme of unrighteous and cruel oppression, followed by eventual deliverance from the Lord. And that is something we see all the time in our lives. And it helps us to have faith in our own trials when we can see that God is in the background working and there will be deliverance, but He will try our patience and faith. All right, let's go ahead and get started on Mosiah chapter 24. This is the second chapter of a 2-chapter series, chapter 23 and 24, where we learn about the people of Alma, which was a priest. Alma was a wicked priest at one point, but he listened to the words of Abinadi, a prophet, and he was converted to Christ. He ends up forming an entire community of converts. They create their own city named Helam, but unfortunately, some wicked people, some Lamanites, headed by a very wicked former priest named Amulon, comes and conquers them, and they are under oppression by Amulon. So you've got these two former, colleagues, Alma and Amulon. They used to be just priests underneath King Noah, but now they're under very different circumstances because Alma is the leader of his righteous group of Christians, and Amulon is a Lamanite sub-king, if you will, ruling over the people of Alma and oppressing them greatly. It gets pretty sad in this chapter, but don't worry, it has a happy ending. All right, the summary for today is Amulon persecutes Alma and his people. They are to be put to death if they pray. The Lord makes their burdens seem light. He delivers them from bondage, and they return to Zarahemla. And Zarahemla is, of course, originally where those Nephites were from. So they're going to end up going back home. That's a good thing. It came to pass that Amulon did gain favor in the eyes of the king of the Lamanites. Therefore the king of the Lamanites granted unto him that his brethren that they should appoint teachers over his people, yea, even over the people who were in the land of Shemlon, and in the land of Shilam, and in the land of Amulon. For the Lamanites had taken possession of all these lands. Therefore the king of the Lamanites had appointed kings over all these lands. So the main king of the Lamanites, I don't know what his name is, but there's sub-kings under this main king, and Amulon is one of his sub-kings, and he's the one who is ruling over the land of Helam as well, with the people of Ammon, who are the righteous Christians. Alma. And now the name of the king of the Lamanites was Laman. Oh, I guess there's the name, Laman. Okay. Being called after the name of his father. Therefore he was called King Laman, and he was a king over a numerous people. And he appointed teachers of the brethren of Amulon in every land which was possessed by his people. And thus the language of Nephi began to be taught among all the people of the Lamanites. And they were a people friendly with one another. Nevertheless, they knew not God. Neither did the brethren of Amulon teach them anything concerning the Lord their God, neither the law of Moses, nor did they teach them the words of Abinadi. But they taught them that they should keep their record, that they might write one to another. Okay, so nice. They're getting an education. They're not, God-fearing at all, but they're trying to be kind to each other and know how to read and write. And thus the Lamanites began to increase in riches, and began to trade one with another, and wax great, and began to be a cunning and a wise people as to the wisdom of the world. Yea, a very cunning people, delighting in all manner of wickedness and plunder, except it were among their own brethren. So the Lamanites are kind of an interesting crew. They're more than happy to harm someone outside of their tribe, so to speak, but within their tribe, they have relative peace. They get along with each other at least. It came to pass that Amulon began to exercise authority over Alma and his brethren, and began to persecute him, and cause that his children should persecute their children. So again, as a reminder, Amulon is a Lamanite, and he's one of the sub-kings of Lamanites. And the Lamanites among themselves are pretty happy with each other, but there's no rules about how to treat outsiders. And he obviously would remember Alma back from the days when they were both priests, and he would be very unhappy with Alma's choice to become a Christian and to depart lifestyles, basically. Oh, it says that in verse 9. For Amulon knew Alma, that he had been one of the king's priests, and that he had believed the words of Abinadi, the prophet, and was driven out before the king. And therefore he was wroth with him, for he was subject to King Laman. Yet he exercised authority over them, and put tasks on them, and put taskmasters over them. And it came to pass that so great was their affliction, they began to cry mightily to the Lord. So the people of Alma, who are under Amulon, they are struggling because they're getting made fun of, they're getting persecuted, they're getting tons of burdens placed on them. They're not even allowed to pray. So they are crying mightily to the Lord. Amulon commanded that they should stop their cries, and he put guards over them to watch them, that whosoever should be found calling upon God should be put to death. So that's happened also in the Old Testament as well. We've seen that before, where praying is so like such a no-no that you'll end up getting your life taken if you pray. That's some pretty heavy oppression. Wow, that's scary. And Alma and his people did not raise their voices to the Lord their God, but did pour out their hearts to him, and he did know the thoughts of their hearts. Because of course you can pray quietly in your own thoughts, right? Which is a good thing. You can do that. You don't have to always do it out loud. And they definitely availed themselves of that. And it came to pass that the voice of the Lord came to them in their affliction, saying, Lift up your heads and be of good comfort, for I know of the covenant which you have made unto me, and I will covenant with my people and deliver them out of bondage. And I will also ease the burdens which are placed on your shoulders, that even you cannot feel them upon your backs, even while you are in bondage. And this will I do, then you may stand as a witness for me hereafter, that ye may know of a surety that I, the Lord God, do visit my people in their afflictions. Now this verse is so powerful. I'm going to read it again because I feel like it's something we can absolutely take into our life today, this very minute, is to know that as we are doing our best to follow Jesus Christ, that he will ease our burdens upon our shoulders, that even you cannot feel them upon your backs. So that doesn't necessarily mean we're always going to be delivered out of our problem, but we can pray and receive strength through Christ. The burden is not going to feel so heavy. I've had this happen in my life for sure. I'm not going to just go into any examples right now, but it's like almost a constant thing that whatever I feel like my particular burden is, as I call on the Lord and pray, he lightens that. He gives me the ability to handle it. He can strengthen you in your suffering. So it's true that there are things that come our way that we don't have the skills, we don't have the resources, we don't have the emotional strength. It's too much for us. I mean, there's no question that things like that happen to us in our lives, but we can call upon God and receive strength through Christ, that he can lighten those burdens, and we can feel like with Christ we can be enough. I feel that all the time in my life, that when there's something that's heavy and difficult, if I call on Christ, he can help me. And I think it definitely takes faith, to remember, instead of just like, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it, to be like, pray, get down on your knees, say, God, show me the way, give me the strength, help me through Christ to have the ability to do what is required of me here. So this is a very, very correct principle, and it's beautiful. It's one of those truly beautiful verses in the Book of Mormon that I love so much. It came to pass that the burdens which were laid upon Alma and his brethren were made light. I don't know, did I say I was going to read that verse again? Maybe I already did. Well, I'm going to read it again. I will ease the burdens which are put upon your shoulders, that you cannot feel them on your backs, even while you're in bondage. And this will I do, that you may stand as a witness for me hereafter, that you may know of a surety that I, the Lord God, do visit my people in their afflictions. Yeah, sorry to jump forward and back there, but it's just so important to realize that God says why he does that here, that he will allow us to go through hard things and then yet strengthen us as we call on him, that we can stand as a witness for him hereafter, and know that God will help us in our afflictions. So part of the reason that he allows, bad things to happen to us and then strengthens us is so we can have our testimony strengthened and then witness to other people, so that then they can be strengthened and be uplifted in their trials, and then witness to other people. It's really a cool principle. All right, back to verse 15. And now it came to pass that the burdens which were laid upon Alma and his brethren were made light. Yea, the Lord did strengthen them, that they could bear up their burdens with ease. And they did submit cheerfully and with patience to all the will of the Lord. I just want to talk one more second about how God can strengthen us in our burdens. Again, as I've mentioned earlier, I have felt, and I imagine you have too if you've been around for very long, that there are burdens that are just too heavy, whether it's like a class in college that's just really, really hard, or situations with your employment, or struggle with a kid, or drama with a friend, or just all kinds of things that just like, I can't figure out the answer and it's too hard and I can't face another day of this. It's overwhelming, right? But this whole idea that God can strengthen us and we can bear up, and under these burdens, we could submit with patience and with faithfulness to the will of the Lord. And that as we are patient and faithful, we can receive strength, and we grow in that relationship with God. It's just a beautiful thing. And I think that, the problem of why bad things happen to good people can be very upsetting if you don't have a good understanding about that. But once you can really, really get it in your heart that the bad things that happen to you can actually turn to your benefit, and that God will help you, then you don't feel quite so gut punched by the bad things. In fact, it's like, hey, I can prove my faithfulness and my patience, and I can actually grow here and grow my relationship and grow my testimony and become a better witness of Christ because of these difficult things. It just casts an entirely different feeling upon the difficult things that happen to you. And I think it's critical to come to a good place with bad things that happen to us, so that they're testimony builders rather than shattering our testimony of Christ. We want the things that happen to us to draw us closer to Christ rather than causing us to shake our fist and say, why, this isn't fair. We don't want that. Not only does it not feel good, it really leads us away from Christ. So the Lord did strengthen their burdens that they could bear them with ease. And it came to pass that so great was their faith and their patience that the voice of the Lord came unto them again, saying, Be of good comfort, for on the morrow I will deliver you out of bondage. Again, I want to zoom in on that. So great was their faith and their patience that we can, in our trials, work to have such great faith and patience that it will tug God's heartstrings. He will see the depth of our humility and our willingness to work with Him. And I think there's a lot more spiritual power in that humility and that patience in waiting on the Lord and that deep faith. And again, he said unto Alma, Thou shalt go before this people, and that's the Lord speaking, and I will go with thee and deliver this people out of bondage. Now it came to pass that Alma and his people in the nighttime gathered their flocks together, and also their grain, and even all the nighttime they were gathering their flocks together. And in the morning the Lord caused a deep sleep to come upon the Lamanites. Yea, all their taskmasters were in a profound sleep. And Alma and his people departed into the wilderness. And when they had traveled all day, they pitched their tents in a valley, and they called the valley Alma, because he led their way into the wilderness. So just a couple of chapters ago, we read of the miraculous escape of the people of Limhi, how they were able to leave through the back gate of the city by administering wine to the Lamanites, who became drunk enough that the people could escape. So that was a miracle, right? I would never think that someone could be, like, all of the guards would be that drunk long enough to get everyone out there. But anyway, pretty miraculous. But this is like even more intense of a miracle, because I've often thought about this story, how incredible it is that God made it so the Lamanites were in a deep sleep so that the people of Alma could leave. But where was Alma's guarantee beforehand? It's just like he didn't have it. It was all faith. Just like when Moses came to the Red Sea, he had no guarantee or pre-plan of exactly how that sea was going to part. It was all faith. So these people of Alma were so filled with faith, it just boggles my mind. I don't know that my faith is that strong, but I know that's the kind of faith that as we continue to follow Christ, we can eventually build, the kind of faith that moves mountains. And that's the faith that the people of Alma had. They had such great faith that they would gather together all their things and be ready for their journey and trust that God was going to actually put these Lamanites to sleep. And I don't know if they knew ahead of time that God was going to put them to sleep, but he just said, this is the night that you're going to escape. And then he caused that they were put asleep. So sometimes our miracles come in ways where we're involved in a practical manner, like when the people of Limhi administered the wine to the guards. They were involved. They could kind of see, I'm participating in this. I'm giving them the wine. I can see it's probably going to work. But sometimes, like in this story of Alma, they weren't involved in causing the Lamanites to go to sleep. It was all faith, trusting in God. And I think there's a really good lesson for us that sometimes we get up against really hard problems where we just cannot think of any solution. We cannot see a way. There's nothing we can do. And there really is a space for and a time for letting God take the wheel, letting him take control, trusting that he has solutions we haven't even thought of. He has control of all kinds of things that we can't control. And again, if led by the Spirit, if we feel like that is the position we need to take in a particular trial, then that is a thing. That is what happened here with the people of Alma, that God put together a truly incredible miracle. But I am just amazed. I'm blown away by the people of Alma, that they had that much trust in God, that they were willing to just gather up all their stuff and, here we go, let's leave. And we're just hoping that the Lamanites don't wake up. Okay, so they escape from the Lamanites and they are in the valley they are calling Alma. And in the valley of Alma, they poured out their thanks to God because he had been merciful unto them and eased their burdens, and he had delivered them out of bondage. For they were in bondage, and none could deliver them, except it were for the Lord their God. And of course, they were finally able to pray vocally, because all of this time that they were under Lamanite oppression, they couldn't pray vocally. I'm sure they were so relieved and happy to be able to finally pray out loud. And they gave thanks to God, yea, all their men and all their women and all their children that could speak lifted their voices in the praises of their God. And I'm sure it was just joyful for them to finally be able to speak and shout and sing their praises without any threat of harm coming to them. And now the Lord said unto Alma, haste thee and get thee and this people out of the land. For the Lamanites have awakened and do pursue thee. Therefore get thee out of this land, and I will stop the Lamanites in this valley, that they come no further in pursuit of this people. So Alma must have been incredibly connected with God, spiritually. At this point, he's a prophet, so I guess that's how prophets work. But he received that revelation from God. Oh, Lamanites are awake. You need to move. It came to pass they departed out of the valley and took their journey into the wilderness. And after they had been in the wilderness 12 days, they arrived in the land of Zarahemla, and King Mosiah did receive them with joy. So as you've seen in the last few chapters, you have the people of Alma who've just come to the people of Mosiah in Zarahemla. And you also have the people of Limhi who have just come also to join up with the people of Mosiah in the land of Zarahemla. So you're having all kinds of reunions and stories, and it's really quite a joyous and exciting time. And there's so much more to come as Mosiah welcomes all of these people and then translates the record that the people of Limhi brought with them from their past explorations when they found that civilization that had been annihilated. So we look forward to learning from that civilization, because there's some cool stories. All right, so many lessons in this chapter about being patient and waiting on God, and how he does allow unfair, difficult circumstances to teach us, to help us increase our faith and our patience in him. That these are qualities he wants to see grow in us, because more patience and faith and humility and trust in God, these are things that draw us closer and closer to him, so that we can hear his voice, so that we can testify of him, so that we can have more strength in Christ. It all keeps spiraling us upward, everything bad that happens to us truly can be for our good. And I testify of that. And that is a theme that we see over and over again. A couple of themes we've seen in the last couple of chapters for sure is the high value on liberty, but also the high value on patiently trusting God and growing your testimony and your faith in Him. All right, I leave these things with you, hoping you are gaining from that, and invite you to think about ways you can apply it in your own life. And I'll see you next time.